Hello Evertonians and welcome to the All Together Now Everton Football Club podcast. We are here at the Bramley Moore Pub on the banks of the Royal Blue Mersey, quite literally 10 yards away from our future home here at the Bramley Moore Dock. I'm Tony Scott and I'm joined by Greg O'Keefe and Jez Clein to be discussing our future home here on the Liverpool waterfront. We'll also be talking about our last season here, yes, at Goodison Park. Gents, your initial thoughts on being back down here on the waterfront, looking at the stadium to our right. Greg, your thoughts on it overall? It's not far. It's like basically 12 months' time. This lovely, lovely stadium will be complete. In 18 months' time, we'll be kicking our first ball in there. Your thoughts on it?
It's surreal being back down here. Obviously, somewhere we've spent a lot of time over the years, from playing for the Sunday League team, affiliated to the pub, to the podcast has been recorded there a lot in the past. Regular patrons will know that, and regular listeners will know that. We've been on that site with the Bramley Moore football team, and so familiar with it. But then it never fails to surprise me, the speed and the scale of the project. We'll talk about it, but full credit to everyone involved in that, Colin Chong and everybody, because it's remained resilient to all the challenge we've had on and off the pitch. The speed of it is just staggering, and now it feels very real. Looking at it now to our right, seeing that brick facade outside, seeing it looks and feels like what it's going to be, an iconic world-class football stadium, and the excitement starting to kick in.
It is indeed. Jez, it's hard to imagine to our right, 10 yards away, was an empty dock a few years ago. Now, well, in 12 months' time, there'll be a world-class football stadium and be our future home. Your thoughts looking at it from, 10 yards away?
Yeah, I was down here about 2 months ago, but it was dark, but just the sheer size of it, it's just hits you, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And just anyone who will see it for the first time, when it's complete especially, it will just be the absolute sheer size of it. You just can't wait. It almost gives you goosebumps, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Just looking at it and imagining being in there and seeing Everton when the first time we come out to Z cars.
Oh,
just the hairs will be standing up, won't they, on the back of your neck, and you're just wanting that day to come, aren't you?
Yeah, but say you do want it to come, but at the same time, Greg, you don't want it to come because you know you're going to be leaving Goodison Park. Your thoughts on the process now? Everton will be moving in at the start of the season instead of midway through next season. Is that an emotional and sentimental decision, or because if you think about it, if it's a business decision, we'd be in there next Christmas, wouldn't we?
Yeah, it's. I think there's a degree of, as we said on a recent podcast, there's probably a degree of sentiment, but I think with something as big and once in a lifetime, many lifetimes actually, moving home of a football club that's been existed since 1878, it's got to be right. And for me, the right decision has been taken to move at the start of a season. I think people would have regretted it if we'd have moved mid or three quarters of a season. It just wouldn't feel right. You need to have one last valedictory, emotion-drenched season at the Old Lady, and then we can build ourselves up emotionally and everything else to start in a new era and a new season at our new home. And yes, it might cost us. And I know people like Gav Buckland, regular podcaster, will say, as he does, it's, every penny counts. Of course it does, he's right. And there's a degree of, it's a tough compromise to lose that potential revenue. But don't forget, imagine if it had an adverse impact on the team and the club moving during the season. Well, that could hit us as well financially. So for me, it's the right decision. And it's a bit of an unprecedented one.
Yeah.
You'd have to go way back in the history books to find out, what they thought about moving from Anfield to Goodison back then. I don't know whether that was halfway through a season or at the end. I'm sure our friend in the Heritage Society would tell us that. But a long-winded way of saying absolutely the right idea for me.
Yes, is it the right decision for you, for Everton, to go in not obviously halfway through the season?
Definitely. It just gives them, I know we say it will be ready 12 months today.
Yeah.
But anything could happen between now and then. The one thing you didn't want to do is say, right, we're going to play our first game there first week of February, and then something happened and they'd go, typical Everton, or can't get it right. It just gives them that
6 months
extra,
flexibility.
and to test things out, which is what you've got to do. It's a massive project, an absolute massive project. You can't just move in overnight. And also, how would it work with season ticket holders, with lounge people? So would we pay, if they said, yeah, we're going to move in halfway, would our season tickets or the lounge hospitality, would that be factored in? So prorated, you'd pay 50% based on Goodison and 50% on
logistically
here.
It wouldn't make sense.
So I don't know if the upside, if we would get the benefits of the additional income that we're hoping straight away, halfway through a season. So for me, I'm happy to go with the club on this one, definitely.
I think the majority of Evertonians would go with the club on this one, Greg. We're hearing it's on time, on budget, £550 million at a cost. Have you got to take into context how well this has been run, even though we've gone through a pandemic as well, and obviously what's going on in the outside world in terms of prices? The fact that this has been on time, on target and on budget, that says a lot for Everton, doesn't it?
It's a bloody miracle. As you said there, the global pandemic, the chaos of the invasion of Ukraine that affected the world in terms of finances and inflation and rising cost of materials, not least us, the least husband of, the constant upheaval off the pitch, the Premier League's inquiry, just for us to have done what Tottenham failed to do, what so many big, well-financed and more stable football clubs have failed to do. Touch wood, I'm saying this because, it's all looks like it's going to hit the mark. But to do it on time and on budget is incredible. And something Tottenham didn't mind. And I'm saying Tottenham because they're the most recent, aren't they?
Yeah.
And what a fantastic stadium they have in one of the world's major cities. But theirs was significantly over budget and off time. And detractors and people from across the park have long said, you won't be in there for many years, you're kidding yourselves about this year. And then the sort of naysayers globally in football have said that this will end up costing $1 billion and so on and so forth. I'm just astounded, really, that it's been done so well. And like I say, hats off to everybody behind the scenes who kept going. To Lango Rourke, really. We've seen major building projects in this city hit various problems. I think at the new Royal Hospital.
Of course,
Obviously, Carillion were involved, and that's nothing to do with Lango Rourke, but then Birmingham, Queen Elizabeth, and it's one of the biggest infrastructure builds in the region, isn't it?
So, look at the issues Liverpool have had just adding the stand on top of the
Anfield
Road there. The problems they've had, so it's gone remarkably smooth.
It has indeed. Jez, from a fan perspective, I know you will be interested as a season ticket holder in the Bullens. You wanted to know when you'd be able to pick your ticket, where you'd look to be obviously sitting. We're hearing obviously the fan advisory boards are heavily involved with this, and a lot of supporters groups are involved in it. And it's important that everyone sees a little bit of common sense in this in terms of your season ticket approach, because it'll be obviously on the tenure and the longevity of you being a season ticket holder. That's when you obviously get the chance to go and pick your seat. That's common sense, isn't it?
Yeah, the way I would do it personally, I think it should go on tenure. When I got my season ticket, I think there was probably about 3,000 season ticket holders. So no one could really doubt my loyalty. You could just. We even 5 years ago they were selling half-season tickets, weren't they? It's really only since the new stadium's been on the horizon that the waiting list has been built up. So it should be, I think, on tenure, and that's not just for me because my sons, their season tickets probably 12, 14 years they've had theirs. I'd be happy to. Because obviously I want to sit with them. I'd be happy to wait until it's their turn, rather than them having a choice when I get my choice. But I think it should be also, if you sit in the Gladys Street or the Park End, you should get priority on an equivalent at the new stadium. So I sit in the Bullens Road. That's where I like to watch my football from the side of the pitch, quite high up.
So that's the equivalent to this east side stand here.
Yeah, I'd like my priority to be given in that stand first. So Bullens Road, so I get priority based on tenure, but in that part. So when everyone in the Bullens Road gets their option to choose their seats, I get based on 15 years season ticket holder, and then if you've had it 10 years, then so I pick my seat first in that stand. That's how I think it should be.
Like, how important is pricing in this day and age that Evertonians can't be priced out? Obviously, we understand that we're going to a brand new world-class stadium, and obviously prices are going to rise, but it's important that the majority of the supporters going into the stadium are all going to be working-class based, and we can't be priced out of a season ticket, can we?
It's a real head-scratcher, and something obviously the club will have thought long and hard about, and probably agonised about. It's where to set that price point in order to somehow begin clawing back the massive spend and financial commitment the stadium's involved, but also, as you say, not pricing out your core fan base, what makes your football club. And as I said about the challenges that we've all had to the economy and to the country in the past however many years now, going right back to the pandemic, they don't look like they're abating anytime soon. Hopefully it's a stable world even further by next year, but given the way the politics has been lately, I wouldn't bet on it. So it's hugely important that I think everyone accepts, and if they don't, they should really have a look at it and think it's going to be significantly more expensive, and it's tough, and it's going to be hard for some people, and I do think that it would break my heart that some might just have to go, well, I can't renew. But I just don't know a way that the club could freeze. We've been a little bit, to use Roy Hodgson, been a bit spoiled over the years with the amount of price freeze on season tickets at Goodison. Those days sadly are over, and it is going to cost a bit more. And maybe some Blues have thought about this in advance, have been saving, or they'll find the extra money. It's going to be such a big stadium, such a big capacity, that I hope there'll be a competitive bracket, so there will be some relatively affordable, I wouldn't say cheap, but affordable seats, and I'm sure that there will in the Blue Wave stand, and but it's going to be a challenge for everybody, and I think looking at it, one thing I can say is it'll be worth it.
You've got to understand that, haven't you, Jez, in this day and age, if you go into a world-class football stadium, if you want them facilities, if you want more leg room, you're going to be obviously taking all these vantage points on. You're going to be paying a little bit extra on you compared to what you're getting at Goodison Park.
Yeah, the reason we're moving is to increase revenues, and it is about getting that price point, isn't it? I mean, we sell out every game. The fact that capacity is only going to be, but it's going to be 52,000. That will probably ensure that every single game is sold out. So Everton arguably could almost charge what they want. I mean, people put their tickets on Twitter now, £55 for a home game. There's 10 people within 10 seconds going, I'll have it, I'll have it. So you want that money going into Everton's pocket. So at the moment, my season ticket's £660. That works out £34 a game. And no one can argue with that, can they?
No. Not this day and age.
If I was buying that on a match day, it'd be £55. So will they narrow that gap? So it was £550 2 seasons ago. Last year it was £605. This season, £660. Will it be another 10% next year? And then the year after, will I be looking at about £800, £850? I would think so for my equivalencies.
Can't make common sense there. Greg, in terms of obviously a lot of the facilities, speaking to Everton, the fan zone will increase from 1,000 people at Goodison Park to 12,000 here at the Bramley Moore. In fact, the fan zone will be here to our right as you actually go in through the Bramley Moore. You can obviously do a lot of facilities around that in terms of giant screens and mini restaurants all based around. How important is that now that, obviously given into context what Jez has said there in terms of your price, that you're going to get the full match day experience here at the Bramley Moore before and after the game?
It's absolutely vital, because I was fortunate to be in Milan recently with work at the San Siro, and walking up to that iconic stadium in world football, one thing I did notice, and one of the reasons why Milan are set to leave the San Siro, is there's no fan zone to speak of. It's as you walk towards the stadium, it's a bit of a Goodison Park effort. It is of its time. Now, obviously, it's to scale, so there's a lot of vendors, more vendors than we've got, and but there's not much of a fan zone to speak of. Obviously, the challenges that Italian football still has with hooliganism and that, it didn't feel like a modern commercial, thriving. Like I think Jez said earlier, you want to get fans in far earlier and keep them there for hours and hours after the game. There weren't big screens everywhere. There weren't bands playing. There weren't people doing presenting live games and interviews. But when you go to Tottenham, when you go to Arsenal, when you go to the Etihad and watch Man City, even hate to say it, when you go to Anfield these days, that's such a big part of the game now. It's for us to have that, and at some considerable scale as well, from 1,000 to 12,000. Just imagine, and hopefully we get a few of them, a sunny day in April or May, the Mersey is still, it's warm, and we have all that there. It's going to be transformative, and it's somewhere where people will want to come very early and hopefully stay afterwards and have a drink and enjoy the ambience and the results.
Make sure you come to the Bramley Moore Pub first, if you Jez, Greg makes a good point there. If I would have said to you, 15, 20 years ago when we've got our junior Evertonians, if I would have said to you, right, there's a fan zone coming up in 20 years, what's that all about? But now we're living in a day and age where it's important to get to the game early, to look at the early kick-off, to go to the restaurants, the bars, see your mates in pubs, etc. going forward. And this is what this fan zone's going to bring, isn't it? 12,000 people. To put that into context, that's the same size as the Pierhead, which you see in concerts, obviously, during the summer. It's a big, big project, that fan zone alone, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not just your revenue from selling tickets, it's the revenue that the club can make from selling food there, selling alcohol,
kits, merchandise.
Yeah. Once you've got the people there, you keep them there, and and you get them spending money. I'd go early if they were showing the 12:30 game on a big screen there. Yeah, I'd go there because you tend to think that the accessibility is not going to be great. Certainly early on, it's not. Where people are sussing out where they're going to park, where they're going to walk from, how they're going to get there. So you'd get here a couple of hours early. You'd want to take it all in as well, wouldn't you? And if they've got the big screens for you, I'd do that.
Yeah, definitely. Live entertainment, live bands, and to put it into context as well, Greg, and it's important for any Evertonian or even obviously anyone from the outside looking in terms of away supporters, it's a 15-minute walk from Liverpool city centre. It's a 15-minute walk from Sandhills, the nearest train station. That's the same as going to the bottom of County Roads to go to some park. There's a taxi club from Queen's Drive. It's exactly the same scale, isn't it? I think a lot's been made of transport in terms of we're here in Mersey Travel are going to put extra bus routes on, getting into the Bramley Moore. There's going to be soccer buses on. There's going to be trains coming left, right and centre from the south end of the city, from the north end of the city. So it's only going to be a 15-minute walk wherever you're parking or wherever you're getting from.
Yeah, I mean, Jez and I were speaking earlier when we got here before we started recording about what's your routine going to be. Have you thought about the transport coming from the south of the city or you're coming from the north of the city, other parts? How are you going to get in? And people will figure that out, and it's brilliant. That it was disappointing in the first instance that there wasn't in the end the option of extending the rail line from Sandhills and getting a station right next door. And who knows, that might not be off the table forever. As the stadium grows and grows, and we're playing Champions League football and the concerts are going, then maybe they will extend the line there. But you're right, it's not far at all from Old Hall Street, and further on as the town, the footprint of the city centre changes. People already come and socialise and drink around here. 10th Street Social has become a hub. The Wind Factory, there's often dance and rave events around here anyway. So it's already become part of people's psyche. Like, this is just not far from town. It's nothing in a taxi if you're in town. You've maybe spent a couple of hours in town anyway. So I think it'll be great. It'll be accessible. Car parking is going to be at a premium, so I think the club will want to discourage most people from thinking about driving to the games. But
there'll be car parking facilities around Great Howard Street, and the council are going to build a car park as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Again, though, it was interesting that one of the early changes was the idea that when before the repeated blows of finances hit the world and us, they were going to have a car park on site, weren't they? Which would have But then you think as well, the infrastructure is only what it is. It's a 2 carriageway road, Dock Road, Stanley Road, so Regent Road rather. Sorry. So it'll change and it'll grow. Like as Jez said earlier, just because we move in next season doesn't mean that's it and that's all you're ever going to get. The area will continue to evolve and grow. Yeah. But it isn't an imposition to get here by any means, and it'll just be a case of getting used to it.
Yeah. And just if you put into context, if you can get to Goodison Park or Anfield from the city centre, you're going to get to the Bramley Moore Pub, 15-minute walk, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean the only thing with Goodison is that it's sort of like in the middle of, like, you've got the East Lancs, you've got Queen's Drive, both ways, one going to...
But they're horrendous traffic times, aren't they, when you think about it?
The big wide boulevards. And
you're
right, they are horrendous.
They're horrendous.
Yeah.
If you were going to drive to Goodison or Anfield, it's a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare match day.
I think it's okay for Goodison. It is just straight from the south, straight along Queen's Drive, it's fine, 15 minutes. Here, it's sort of like everyone's got to be coming in that way, isn't it? So ways, you've got 4 ways into Goodison. You sort of like got to be in that way, but it's only, I just measured it, it's about 1.5 miles from Albert Dock. Everyone can walk that.
Yeah, and you can get your canoe, Greg, if you fancy it.
If you want to kayak down on my summer's day. I do hope as well that I'm absolutely certain that it will, because Jez is right, like most people can, but my dad's one of them. Not everybody is able to that, so I hope, and I'm sure, the accessibility and the offering for fans who've got limited mobility will be there.
Yeah,
it's a world-class, brand new stadium, so that'll be taken into account, I'm sure, and even that will be transformative from Goodison, because I know from experience it's a challenge to get for somebody who has limited mobility to get into Goodison, to get to their seat, to get to the loo at half time. It's difficult. So this will hopefully be 10 times better.
It will be indeed, and it's important, Jez, that it's a world-class stadium that's going to be built, but it's just not going to be for football. For Everton to generate this income, we're hearing there'll be concerts, there'll be boxing fights, there'll be rugby matches, UFC, we know the Euros is going to be here, but it is a football-first stadium, and then the rest will follow. And that's important, that it's just not going to be here every other Saturday. It's important that there is concerts and other sporting events on here, isn't it?
That's where the money is. I mean, the Etihad hosts enough concerts. I mean, as you know, I'm a big concert goer. You may have noticed that. Yeah, I just can't wait to have concerts down here. I mean, Liverpool they have a few at Anfield, don't they?
Stones and Pink and stuff.
Yeah, but that's not going to compete with this. What this will have to offer, because you think it has been built with that in mind.
Of course it has, yeah.
Plus I think talk of the Magic Weekend Rugby League, it's a perfect fit for here, being close to the city centre. So I think it's at Elland Road next summer. I think the week before the football season starts. They weren't too happy about that, Leeds fans, but the pitch can cope these days. They're practically not grass, are they?
No. How important is that, Greg, that it's not just football matches that'll be played here every other single Saturday? It's for concerts, boxing fights. We know obviously the scope in terms of boxing fans, and rugby league, as obviously Jez just said, UFC, which is a growing sport, the Euros, which we know about, is obviously going to be hosted here at the Bramley Moore, and there's other bits and pieces. I know for when I'm obviously booking tickets for concerts and whatnot, you're looking at Manchester if you want to go and see a Coldplay or something. You don't need to do that now. You're going to be watching them on your doorstep.
Spot on, and Jez is right. In the past, I think the arena, the M&S Bank Arena, or the Echo, as most know, has got like a 10,000 capacity.
Yeah,
and unfortunately, that rules out your Pinks, your Rolling Stones, your Oasises. The bigger groups need to play in front of the maximum capacity they can. And if they want to play in the Northwest, it's either traditionally been Manchester, although it has been Anfield since they've expanded the main stand there. But it's going to be us from now on, and it'll be, one of the dreams we imagined since about Bruce Springsteen or someone like that playing there.
Paul McCartney could be opening it. We're hearing.
Well, I mean, that would be the ultimate, wouldn't it? But it's the concerts. UFC, you say it's a growing sport. Absolutely a growing sport. Massive. I think it's been hosted in Liverpool once or twice. I can remember.
In the arena,
But the capacity, and they sold out.
Yeah, with the second.
The potential to double not double, but significantly increase the potential audience for that will be huge. The exposure it will give the city.
Yeah.
Because these sports will want to come here.
Of course, yeah.
And not just other sports or concerts. We can talk about this, but if you think now the big hub for people we have got so many disparate little cool areas of the city. The big hub is what was Chivas Park and Liverpool One with your ZZs and your Five Guys and whatever other restaurants there now, they change a bit. I think this will rival that.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be such an offering of different, diverse food and drink that, as you were saying earlier, it's not just going to be a match day thing. If you want to come for a lovely meal for someone's birthday or something, this will be an option because there's going to be enough options. There'll be I'm convinced that everything I've seen from the club, and I've been down to the Royal Live building and I've seen the tour, it is going to be really, really high quality food as well. So it'll rival your Matu down by the dock. And also the views as well. Fantastic and important to keep this as a growing, viable project.
It is indeed. We're speaking about food then, Jez, hospitality side of it. We're hearing there's 4 phases of hospitality. You can obviously, Everton will have to offer at the Bramley Moore. 3 of them have already sold. Very, very popular is going to be the Tunnel Club, which we were speaking off camera before. In terms of actually, you can have your hospitality package and you will see the players actually go past you in the glass tunnel. You're going to see all that. From what we're hearing from Everton as well, it will be affordable. They're not going to obviously skyrocket the prices. It will be, obviously, if you want to have a one-off game, to have that Tunnel Club access. We're also hearing that the restaurants during the week, you'll be able to go in and have something to eat as well. So it won't be like it's a match day and that's it. During the week, if you want to go to one of the restaurants at the Bramley Moore, you can go in. All this adds to the factor, doesn't it?
Yeah, it all adds to the income. The important thing is Everton have got to own that stadium, though, haven't they? That's the unknown really at the moment. We talk about all these things. If we're going to have concerts and boxing and Paul McCartney, then we need to earn that income. So that's one thing to sort out. It's just exciting, isn't it? You can't build a new stadium that's only going to be used 25 days a year. So it's going to have lounges. People will have Christmas parties there. Probably weddings there. It's got to be something that can be used by everyone, and it sounds like it is going to be.
Yeah, Jez has just touched on something there though as well, and I don't want to be negative on something that's almost overwhelmingly positive, but it does come at a crucial point again in our history where there's the potential to change ownership, or the likelihood that we're going to change ownership, and we've heard mixed reports about 777 partners. So I do have a degree of trepidation about what that might mean and what they've been on the PR front foot, and they've got out there and trying to convince people that they would be credible and positive owners, but ultimately the idea of us, because it's not so long ago we were worried about potential administration and we need to just Jez has hit the nail on the head there. We need to own this football club, not be this stadium, not be tenants.
Of course, 100%. So in 12 months time, Jez, we could move in. We're hearing that Everton will be bringing 3 test events, pilot events, possibly a women's game for a test event, maybe 20,000-30,000 in, open training, possibility of maybe 40,000 at that. Then they will look to obviously add that pre-season game in ahead of obviously our first league game there. If you could pick one particular opponent for that pre-season game at the Bramley Moore, what would it be?
My initial thought was someone like a Real Madrid, especially if Ancelotti was still there. Unlikely he would be. It's a Real Madrid or a Barcelona, but then someone came up with Bayern Munich, and that was probably the greatest night I've had at Goodison. So what a way to open the new stadium than inviting Bayern Munich back.
I think we can all agree on that one. That would be like an emotional thing, obviously leaving Goodison and having the first celebrated friendly, the pre-season friendly before the season starts. Bayern Munich, 52,000 in the first game at the Bramley Moore. That would be special, wouldn't it?
It would be incredible, and I think to imagine you'd need a top world club buying tick that box. And just imagine the Munich fans coming over. They're fantastic, aren't they? Football fans. they'd be in good spirits. There'd be thousands of them just watching, how they support their clubs. I would imagine that the way end, even as the way end, would be a sizable quota of fans. They'd probably drink the Bramley dry, and so on, and they could still have Harry Kane banging them in. Amazing players. That is a really good shout. Really, it's a really good shout. I'd love to see Bayern being our first game there, and I'm sure it will have crossed minds at the club because of the symbolism as well.
Let us know your thoughts on who you think should be Everton's perfect opponent for Everton's first game here at the Bramley Moore Stadium. Before we wrap up, gents, we've been talking about statues. Should a Neville Southall statue be here? Should a Howard Kendall statue be here? I'm going to give my penny's worth on it. I don't think we should have a statue here at the Bramley Moore. I think that, like I said, the Dixie Dean one, that's at Goodison Park, that's where he created his legacy. That's what his 60 goals were. I think the Holy Trinity, that's where obviously they created that dynasty in the 1960s team at Goodison Park. I think that should be for the next team, that next generation of Everton players to create their own dynasty, and that's what I think. Anyway, that's the statue should be for the next player to come through from the academy, maybe whoever lifts a trophy. I think that's what we should be. What's gone on in the past at Goodison Park, leave it there, and that's for the future. That's my opinion anyway. What do you think about the potential of a statue at the Bramley Moore?
No, I certainly lean towards your take on that. If there was going to be one, Jez said earlier, I think Howard Kendall is such a huge figure in our football club. History full stop, not just modern history, that there would be a shout for Howard Kendall. What I know is that the club will, and I'm increasingly confident that there'll be proper engagement with the fans.
Yeah, of course.
Through the Fan Advisory Board and the Shareholders Association and all those channels, which there's genuine traction with. There's an actual dialogue there that's consistent, and it's proven that the club are listening, and they'll ask us, the fans, that. I'd love to know what our patrons and the listeners think about it, but I'd lean towards there not being one. If there was going to be one, maybe it's Howard, but leave Dixie and the Holy Trinity where they are, and possibly leave that canvas blank for something even better than what we've had.
A future potential hero, in my opinion. Jez, what about you?
Yeah, it'd be nice if we had one for Sean Dyche in about 5 years.
It would be, wouldn't it?
Draw the picture.
Don't need to make it that big.
But do you agree with that? I mean, in my opinion, I think that should be for a future hero. That's for the inspiring next generation. That you want a statue at the bottom.
Yeah, I'd not thought of it like that, and my initial thoughts were someone like Howard Kendall. But as you said, all those memories were made at Goodison. So keep those at Goodison. Let's keep it blank for a future hero for when one appears at Bramley Moore.
That future hero, indeed. Evertonians, that is your lot on this Christmas special. We really appreciate all your support as ever on our Patreon channel. Keep up to date with everything you can hear on the All Together Now Everton Football Club podcast. We're here at the Bramley Moore, Everton's future home. Thank you very much, and Merry Christmas.